After studying this module, we shall be able to understand the concept of labor market, learn about the different labor market phenomena, identify the factors which cause unemployment, and know the types of unemployment.
In this module, we examine an important macroeconomic phenomena, that is unemployment. Unemployment is a problem which has wide economic, social and political ramifications. An unemployed person suffers from economic and psychological distress which can impair his well-being and social life. The loss to the economy due to the loss of output and the wastage of human resource is severe and manifold. It is not surprising then that political parties seek to resolve this problem and promise to generate jobs in their election manifestos. The unemployed comprise all persons above a specified age who report that they are without work and that they are available for work and that they have taken active steps to find work in specified reference period as outlined by the ILO guidelines. These include registering at a private or public employment exchange, answering vacancies notices, visiting factories, construction sites and other places of work, seeking assistance of friends and relatives or looking for resources to set up own enterprise. In an economy where unemployment is low, the workers are better off as they can negotiate a high wage for themselves. In other words, a tight labor market is favorable for workers vis-a-vis the firms. However, when unemployment is high, workers are worse off as unemployed workers face a lower possibility of finding a job and employed workers have a higher probability of losing their jobs. Given the enormity of problems associated with unemployment, it is important for the student of economics to learn the nature and causes of unemployment and its possible solutions. In this unit, we learn about theories of unemployment proposed by the classical, Keynesian and new Keynesian schools. Before venturing into theories, a brief survey of labor market would enable us to understand its underlying complexity.
The working population of a country who are potentially available for civilian employment may be categorized as those in labor force and those who are out of labor force. Those in the labor force are either working, the employed, or looking for work, the unemployed. Those who are out of the labor force are neither working nor looking for work. They are known as economically inactive. Reasons for economic inactivity includes looking after the family, early retirement, enrolling for a course, or recovering from sickness. There is a continuous movement from one state to the other as people are constantly moving in and out of each of the three states at any given point in time. People are moving out of unemployment to employment if they are finding a job. Some unemployed are quitting the labor force and becoming inactive out of distress. Some among the employed may get laid off and join the unemployed, whereas some may leave their jobs and also the labor force to become inactive. Among the inactive, some may decide to join the labor force and begin their quest for a job. If they find one, instantly they are called employed. If they don't, they are treated as unemployed.
During the period April to June 2013, there were 40.2 million people aged 16 to 64 within the labor market in United Kingdom, comprising 28.2 million who were in employment and further 2.5 million who were unemployed. There were also a further 9.0 million people who were economically inactive. The question is, how to measure? Labor force, that is L, is a sum of those who are employed E, and those who are unemployed, U. That is, L is equal to E plus U. The labor force participation rate is the ratio of labor force to population in percentage. LFPR is equal to L upon working age population multiplied by 100. The workforce population rate is the ratio of employment to the labor force, again in percentage. WFPR is equal to E upon L into 100. Unemployment rate is the ratio of unemployed to the labor force in percentage. U is equal to U upon L into 100. The labor market is always in a state of flux. At any given point in time, within the labor force, some among the employed are getting laid off and some among the unemployed are getting hired. Those who remain unemployed for a long period may decide to leave the labor force out of distress. They are, in effect, discouraged workers who may be out of labor force but are likely to accept a job if it is offered to them. Some may decide to leave the labor force out of choice. For example, an IT professional may take a break to pursue her MBA. Among those who are out of labor force, some may decide to start looking for jobs and join the stream of unemployed, and if some of them are fortunate enough to get hired instantly, they are counted as employed. A given unemployment rate may reflect an active labor force with many workers entering and exiting unemployment, or it may reflect a dormant labor market with few hires and separations. Also, if people are leaving the labor force by choice or out of distress, it would lead to a fall in unemployment, even though there is no improvement in the labor market. One has to analyze the data on the movement of workers in order to understand which of these situations depicts a given unemployment rate. Let us understand the flow of people in and out of the labor force and within it with the help of an illustration using data from United Kingdom. Figure 2 depicts the flow between employment, unemployment and inactivity in United Kingdom. Between Q1 and Q2 of 2013, examine figure 2 carefully. Between the first and the second quarter of 2013, in the working age group from 16 to 64 years, 27.8 million people stayed employed, 5.1 million remained unemployed and 8.0 million remained inactive. Looking at the flows of people moving from one state to another and comparing Q1 2013 to Q2 2013, one finds that the net flow into employment for unemployment was 141,000 as more people moved from unemployment to employment. That is 545,000 than in opposite direction 404,000. However, the net gain in employment of 141,000 was offset by a net flow from employment into inactivity of 33,000, resulting in a net increase in employment of 108,000, that is 141,000 minus 33,000. The net loss in unemployment of 141,000 due to the flow to employment was offset by a net flow into unemployment from inactivity of 125,000, resulting in a net decrease in unemployment of 16,000, that is 125,000 minus 141,000. In this example, it is evident that though people move in and out of 3 states at any given point in time, a general pattern emerges from the net flows. The net flow from inactivity into unemployment is generally positive when people who were earlier not looking for work start looking for a job. For example, all those who turned 16 or completed their full-time education join the labor force for the first time as new workers. There is a net flow from unemployment to employment as people in the labor force find jobs when economic conditions are normal. Finally, there is a movement from employment to inactivity as some people retire whereas others may decide to leave the labor force to look after their family, complete their education or to recover from ill health.
Now we learn about the theories of unemployment. First, we look at the classical theory which assumes full wage price flexibility. Second, we discuss the Keynesian theory which assumes wage price rigidity. And third, we discuss the new Keynesians, economists belonging to the Keynesian tradition, who forward explanations for wage price rigidity. The classical theory assumes that markets are perfectly competitive, expectations are rational, wages and prices are completely flexible, forces of supply and demand determine the equilibrium which is at full employment.
The labor market determines the demand and supply of labor, where the participants are firms who demand labor in exchange for wages and workers who supply labor in exchange for wages. In this model, the equilibrium between the forces of labor and demand and labor supply determines the real wage and employment. The real wage matters because the worker is concerned more about the purchasing power of wage he receives than its nominal value. Suppose the nominal value wage W is rupees 10 and the price level P is 2, then the real wage W divided by P is 5. If nominal wage rises to 20 and price level P is 4, then the real wage remains the same and the worker is able to afford the same amount of goods and services as before. The firm's demand for labor is derived from the demand for the firm's output and therefore it is called a derived demand. If demand for firm's output increases, the firm would hire more labor. The marginal product of labor, that is MPL, is the extra output produced by the firm by hiring one more unit of labor. Production functions exhibit diminishing marginal returns, implying that by keeping capital constant, if more labor is hired, the marginal product of labor diminishes. Under conditions of perfect competition, profit maximizing firms will hire workers till marginal revenue product, that is MPL into P, is equal to the cost of hiring an additional unit of labor, W, or till MPL becomes equal to real wage. Thus, the marginal product curve of labor constitutes the firm's labor demand curve. Labor demand is inversely related to the real wage, implying that as real wage falls, the demand for labor by the firms would go up. The labor supply curve is generally upward sloping and positively related to real wage. The labor supply curve is derived from the trade-off between work and leisure. Working more hours in a day would mean sacrificing leisure, but at the same time, there is an opportunity to earn more. If wages rise relative to prices, the real wage would rise and the worker would be keen to supply more labor.
In the labor market, the equilibrium between the forces of labor demand and labor supply determines the real wage and employment. Labor demand is inversely related to the real wage, implying that as real wage falls, the demand for labor by the firms would go up. The labor supply is positively related to the real wage, implying that as real wage increases, more of number of laborers are willing to provide the labor. The diagram shows the demand curve intersecting the supply curve at point E, with W by P star as a real wage and N star as the equilibrium employment. If for some reason real wage is more than the equilibrium real wage, that is W by P dash is greater than W by P star, there is an excess supply of labor at the new wage resulting in unemployment at N dash. This will put a pressure on W by P to fall, reducing the excess supply so that equilibrium is restored at E at full employment. The unemployment existing at the full employment level in the classical model is also called the natural rate of unemployment, which is defined as the rate of unemployment to which the economy gravitates in the long run. Unemployment arising due to frictional factors is called frictional unemployment. It occurs because it takes time for workers to search for a new job or for firms to look for the right type of worker. When the worker is voluntarily searching for work, it is called a search employment. Unemployment may also arise due to structural factors in a changing economy. For example, the computer industry has overtaken the typewriter industry. Unemployment thus generated is called structural unemployment.
Another view is the Keynesian view of unemployment, wage price rigidity. The experience of Great Depression led John Maynard Keynes to question the assumption of full wage price flexibility of classical model. According to him, wages are sticky downwards. In other words, high unemployment would not lead to fall in real wages as workers do not like a cut in their nominal wages and would resist any such move through strikes and demonstrations. Fearing workers' resistance, employers also are wary of cutting wages. Besides, nominal wages are set by contracts which remain effective for many years and cannot be renegotiated in response to changing demand and supply conditions, making it difficult for wages to adjust. Wages may eventually fall to reach the full employment equilibrium, but only gradually. Keynes showed that involuntary unemployment can arise if there is a lack of effective demand in the goods market. In such a situation, firms start accumulating inventories and they cut back on production and hiring. This has a negative impact on labor demand, so that more people are willing to work than is desired by the market, resulting in unemployment. This calls for government intervention to boost aggregate demand so that more goods are produced by employing more labor.
According to Keynes, wages are sticky downward, implying that high unemployment would not lead to fall in real wages. Reasons for same are that workers do not like a cut in their nominal wages and resist any such move through strikes and demonstrations. Besides, nominal wages are set by contracts which remain effective for many years and cannot be renegotiated in response to changing demand and supply conditions, making it difficult for wages to adjust. In the Keynesian model, factor and commodity prices are rigid, and as Keynesian's aggregate supply is horizontal at the given price level P naught. In the classical model, factor and commodity prices are flexible, and classical's aggregate supply is vertical at the potential level of output Y star. In the short run, when prices are inflexible, the economy as point K depicting the Keynesian equilibrium with output Y. The point also characterizes recession and unemployment, which lower wages and prices gradually, making the Keynesian's aggregate supply shift downwards at price level P1 and the economy reach point C in the long run, depicting the classical equilibrium. Economists with Keynesian orientation, known as the New Keynesian, have offered some explanations for sticky wages. Figure shows that real wages higher than the equilibrium wage cause unemployment, measured by the distance OB. It may be difficult to reduce such unemployment as typically wages are inflexible due to a number of reasons. These are collective bargaining, theory of efficiency wages, minimum wages, insider outsider model. Workers have strong bargaining power if they collectively form a trade union. Union can bargain for higher wage for themselves than the equilibrium wage rate. This makes some workers unemployed, but rest of them can get a better wage and good working condition. Theory of efficiency wages explore how paying high wages make workers more efficient. The firm pays a high real wage so that the worker is motivated. It also reduces labor turnover. This substantially reduces the firm's hiring and training costs. A higher than normal wage makes workers self-supervise his work efficiently. This also reduces supervision costs. The minimum wage laws protect the workers against exploitation by firms. Employers are required to pay legally binding minimum wages to certain category of workers who are often the less skilled or work in the informal sector. In the insider outsider model, insiders are those who work with the firms and outsiders are those who are unemployed. Insiders are always better placed to negotiate the firms on matters of remuneration and job contracts. The firm also favors the insiders and pay them a high wage to avoid expenditure on hiring and training new entrants or the outsiders.
The classical theory depicts full employment, whereas the Keynesian theory justifies the existence of situation of less than full employment. It is natural to ask which of the two is more acceptable and realistic in describing an economy. Even though the classical and Keynesian views are on the opposite end of spectrum, the contemporary analysis brings together a classical Keynesian synthesis. The Keynesian view of wage price stickiness is realistic as it explains the existence of involuntary unemployment. It is better suited to depict the short-run equilibrium, a time space when contracts cannot be negotiated. However, over a long time frame, when contracts can be reworked, the flexibility of wages and prices return and the economy approaches the long run depicting the full employment equilibrium of classical model.
In the Keynesian model, factor and commodity prices are rigid, and as the ASK is horizontal at the given price level P naught. In the classical model, factor and commodity prices are flexible, and the ASC is vertical at the potential level of output Y star. In the short run, when prices are inflexible, the economy as point K, depicting the Keynesian equilibrium with output Y. The point also characterizes recession and unemployment, which lower wages and prices gradually, making the ASK shift downwards at price level P1 and the economy reach point C in the long run, depicting the classical equilibrium. To summarize, we studied that the labor market signifies three states: employed, unemployed, and inactive. We learned that classical theory showed that wages and price are flexible and economy is always at full employment. We also came to know that the Keynes proposed that wages and prices are inflexible and therefore the labor market does not adjust automatically. We learned that the new Keynesians identified factors such as collective bargaining, minimum wages, and efficiency wages as causes of wage rigidity and unemployment. Finally, the Keynesian view can be seen as a short run feature, whereas the classical view can be treated as a long run phenomena.
Let us summarize what we have learned in this module. Point 1. The labor force consists of employed and unemployed. The labor market signifies three states: employed, unemployed, and inactive. People are constantly moving from one state to the other at any point in time. Point 2. The labor market signifies three states: employed, unemployed, and inactive. People are constantly moving from one state to the other at any point in time. Point 3. Classical theory proposes that wages and prices are flexible and economy is always at full employment. Unemployment arises due to structural or frictional factors. Point 4. Keynes proposed that wages and prices are inflexible and therefore the labour market does not adjust automatically. He showed that unemployment arises due to lack of effective demand and justified government intervention to solve the problem. Point 5. The Keynesians owe their allegiance to Keynesian view. They identify factors such as collective bargaining, minimum wages and efficiency wages as causes of wage rigidity and unemployment. Point 6. The Keynesian view can be seen as a short run feature, whereas the classical view can be treated as long run phenomena.